The first time I noticed it, I thought I was just tired. It was a Tuesday, or maybe a Wednesday. I'd been running late that morning, skipped breakfast, spilled coffee on my shirt, forgot my keys, went back, and found them right where I was sure I'd already looked. One of those days. The sky outside was unusually clear, that sharp kind of blue that almost hurts to stare into, and the air had that strange hum cities get when they're too quiet for their own good. I stepped outside, blinking into the light, and froze. The sun was rising in the west, just sitting there, bold and warm. Over the wrong edge of the horizon, I stood there on my porch, mouth half open, brain immediately shifting into overdrive trying to explain it. Maybe my house was rotated and I never realized. Maybe I was disoriented. Maybe I'd slept wrong and was just confused. But none of that held up when I looked around. The shadows were wrong. Everything had flipped. The tree on the left cast a shadow to the right. The billboard down the road was backlit instead of illuminated. I looked down at my own shadow, trailing toward the east like a paint smear. It was undeniable. The sun was rising where it shouldn't, but no one else seemed to notice. Cars passed normally. A jogger waved at me. A kid pedaled by on a bike, earbuds in, face neutral. The world was still moving, still humming, still continuing, like nothing was different. I stood there, motionless, for too long, until I started to feel ridiculous. Maybe I'd been wrong about east and west all this time. Maybe I just didn't know directions as well as I thought I did. Maybe I was overreacting. That day passed uneventfully. Work was boring, emails piled up. I forgot lunch, but the thought never left. The way the shadows had leaned, the way the warmth came from the wrong direction. I tried Googling sun rising in the wrong direction and found nothing. No headlines, no conspiracies, not even a Reddit post. No one else had seen it. The next morning, I woke up early, deliberately, made coffee, stood in the front yard, and waited. And when the first beam of light hit the sky, it came from the north. I dropped my cup. No mistaking it this time. The entire sky was glowing from a place it never should. The air shimmered like heat waves over pavement, but it wasn't hot. It was cold, very cold. I stood there shaking, not from fear, but from something deeper. Displacement, as if the world was beginning to shed its disguise. I looked around again. No one noticed. Across the street, a neighbor watered her flowers like nothing was wrong. She even waved at me. I waved back, forcing a smile, then stepped inside and locked the door, every window, every bolt, and then I checked my compass app. The needle spun once, paused, and then pointed at the light. North had moved. I spent the rest of that day trying to ground myself, touched things, smelled things, watched the clock tick. Everything felt real, tangible, familiar, but off, like I was in a film set built from my memories, just slightly misaligned. That night, I couldn't sleep. I paced. I stared out the window. At some point, I drifted into something like sleep, but with no dreams, just black. The third morning, I didn't even wait. I sat on the roof with a notebook in hand, tracking the skyline. And just before 6 a.m., the first ray of light burst from directly above. Not from the sky. From a single point, like a spotlight turned on midair. No horizon. No movement, just sudden, present, undeniable light. It wasn't sunlight, not really. It was too white, too sterile. It didn't warm my skin, it dried it, like standing under a surgical lamp. That day, the people were different, still smiling, still moving, but their eyes stayed on me too long. The barista didn't ask for my name. The grocery clerk scanned my items without blinking. A woman on the bus sat down across from me and never stopped staring. And worst of all, I began to feel watched even when alone. The mirrors seemed to ripple. The TV turned on by itself once, just for a second, and showed only static shaped, vaguely like a map, of a city I've never been to. That night, I found something slipped under my door. A note, handwritten, no envelope. It read, "Stop looking up." Nothing else. No signature. No explanation. I didn't sleep. And for the first time, I wasn't just afraid. I was sure. The world knew I'd noticed. And it was watching back. Stayed inside the next morning. Closed the blinds. Kept the lights off. Sat on the couch with a blanket wrapped tight around me, like I could insulate myself from reality if I just held still enough. My phone stayed face down on the table. I didn't want to check the compass again. Didn't want to see which direction the sun had decided to rise from this time. Didn't want to see if it would rise at all, but of course it did. Light bled in through the corners of the windows, first from the cracks above the sink, then from the floorboards near the hallway. Not beams, not warm light, just presence. Silent, heavy illumination that made everything feel more exposed than lit. I watched it crawl across the ceiling, and something in me said it was looking for me. Like a spotlight with no audience. I wanted to pretend I'd imagined it all, that my brain had cracked under the weight of something stupid and modern, stress, loneliness, caffeine withdrawal. But deep down, I knew that wasn't it. Things were changing, not suddenly, gradually, quietly, and I was the only one noticing, or the only one still allowed to. Around 10 a.m., I got brave enough to peek outside. The street looked normal. People walked dogs. A delivery van pulled up across the road. A man in a yellow vest swept leaves into a bin. But something was wrong with their shadows. At first, I couldn't place it. Then it hit me. None of them matched the people they belonged to. Not entirely. A tall woman's shadow was stooped, dragging its leg. A child's shadow flickered, even when the child stood still. And one man had two shadows. One that moved with him, and one that watched me. I slammed the curtain shut and fell back into the chair. Tried to slow my breath. My own shadow on the floor looked unchanged, I think. I spent the next hour walking the house, turning off every reflective surface, covered mirrors with towels, taped paper over the microwave door, unplugged the TV, threw a blanket over my laptop. Everything felt like a portal now, a window for something else to peek through. I was afraid to speak, afraid that if I said something aloud, whatever was watching might hear me through the walls, or worse, through myself. At noon, a knock came at the door. Not loud, rhythmic, software. I froze. The knock came again. I didn't move. After a few minutes, I gathered enough courage to peer through the peephole. No one was there. Just the street, bathed in that same pale wrong light. I unlocked the door slowly, carefully opened it, and saw a letter resting on the welcome mat. Same handwriting as the first note, same lack of envelope. This one said, "We've adjusted the sky for your comfort. You're welcome." No return address, no name. I closed the door and locked it 3 times. The rest of the day passed in stifling silence. My phone wouldn't turn on. The clocks all read different times. The walls creaked when I breathed too loud. And the light never changed. No movement of the sun. No arc across the sky. Just a constant, fixed brightness that pressed into the windows from an angle that didn't exist. By nightfall, I wasn't sure if it was night at all. Then the lights returned. Street lights, flickering in sequence down the road, except they didn't flicker yellow. They flickered blue, cold, rhythmic, each one pulsing as if syncing with a heartbeat I couldn't hear. And then I saw it, outside, across the street, a figure, standing completely still in the middle of the sidewalk. Its shape was wrong, not monstrous, just unfamiliar. Too tall, elbows that bent the wrong way, and no face. Just blank skin. It didn't move, didn't even sway, but its shadow reached toward me. Not toward the house, toward me. It stretched across the road, across the lawn, and stopped just before the door. I backed away. The lights dimmed. The air thickened. And then, from somewhere inside the house, came a whisper. "Look up." My body froze. I didn't want to. I knew what was up there, but I looked. The ceiling was gone. Above me stretched a sky of mirrors, all facing downward, and in each one I saw myself. Dozens of me. Hundreds, staring back. Some blinking at different times. Some smiling. Some with mouths sewn shut. One of them raised its hand. I felt mine lift in sync, like a puppet. And the whisper returned. "You're learning to see, but are you ready to be seen?" The mirrors shattered. Glass rained upward into the void, and everything went black. I woke up on the ceiling. Not metaphorically, literally. My body was lying on the plaster, limbs sprawled like a corpse in reverse. The light that bled through the cracks of the window below, or above, was soft, bluish, and unshifting. My head throbbed, not from pain, but from too much stillness. My brain couldn't tell which way was down anymore, or whether down was still part of the rules. Eventually, gravity remembered its job, or maybe I remembered mine, and I rolled off the ceiling with the softness of paper falling. I landed on the floor, like nothing had happened. Except everything had. The mirrors were gone. Every reflective surface in the house had vanished. Clean cutouts, where they'd once been. The windows still showed light, but no world, no trees, no streets, no sky, just gray. The power was still out, no clocks, no sound. And then I noticed the hallway was longer than before, stretched, distorted like a dream you wake up from too slowly. I moved through the house, noticing subtle differences, a new crack in the wall shaped like a spiral. The photos on the shelves now contained strangers in my clothes. One image had me standing in front of a building I didn't recognize, holding hands with someone who had no face. My bedroom door was breathing. Slow, steady, like the rise and fall of lungs. I didn't open it. The kitchen sink dripped upward. I didn't question it. The rules had changed, or maybe they were never real to begin with, and I'd just been pretending I understood. That's when I saw the third note, folded neatly on the table, with a cup of black coffee beside it. I hadn't made coffee, and the note wasn't handwritten this time. It was printed, crisp, perfect. "Thank you for your patience. Calibration is almost complete. Resume observation." No signature, just a line below in faint red text. "If you experience symptoms of independent thought, report immediately." I laughed, or maybe cried, or maybe both. I sat at the table, sipping the coffee that tasted like burned paper, and looked out the window into the fog where my street used to be. There were shapes moving in the mist, tall, thin, gliding without motion, each of them casting long, sharp shadows that moved faster than they did. One turned its head, if that's what it was, and faced me. I waved. It didn't wave back, but the fog parted slightly, and I saw the street again. Sort of, like a drawing of it. Flat, stylized, too perfect. I stepped outside. The air didn't feel real. It felt processed, like breathing through a filter. I reached out to touch the mailbox. It was warm, not sun-warmed, body-warmed, and it breathed when I touched it. I staggered back. The sidewalk shifted underfoot, rippling slightly. The houses on the street stood still, but their windows blinked, and then the world twitched. A hard, sudden shift, like a screen glitching for half a second. And when it corrected itself, things were almost back to normal. The sky was blue again. People walked past my house. A mailman smiled and waved, but his eyes were empty. I saw the same woman walk her dog twice, in opposite directions. I heard a car honk, then repeat the same honk 7 seconds later. And in the puddle by the curb, my reflection lagged behind by 2 blinks. The world was trying to reset, but it couldn't keep up. The cracks were showing. I wasn't in a city anymore. I was in a loop, a simulation built from memory and routine. And it had realized I'd seen too much. That night, the stars didn't move. They stared, every single one locked in place above me, like pinholes punched through the fabric of reality, just so something else could peek through. I whispered to them, "I know I'm not supposed to be awake." And one of them blinked, not twinkled. Blink. And from somewhere in the walls of my house, inside the vents, the sockets, the floor, I heard that voice again. Gentle, calm, almost kind. "You can go back if you want. We can make you forget. We've done it before." I didn't answer, because I wasn't sure anymore if I wanted to go back. What was there to return to? A loop, a life on repeat. A world that kept pretending nothing was wrong while the sky shifted behind the scenes. I lay down on the floor, facing the ceiling, waiting for the sun to rise again, wondering which direction it would choose next, and whether this time it would rise inside. That night, I dreamed of gears, not mechanical ones. These were made of bone and starlight, massive constructs rotating slowly above the world. They clicked into place, not with sound, but with memory. Every turn rewrote a second, or erased one. Time wasn't flowing. It was being manufactured, carved out like pieces from a mold. I floated above it all, or beneath it, I couldn't tell, and watched as the gears moved in rhythm with the rising sun. Each time they clicked, a new morning began. Each time they stalled, a shadow gained ground. When I woke, the world had changed again. The walls of my room were transparent, not glass, just absent. I could see into my neighbor's kitchen, where he stirred coffee with the same motion on loop. Stir, tap, sip, stir, tap, sip. He didn't look up. Outside, the street was gone, replaced with scaffolding, raw framework, like the world was still under construction. The sky wasn't blue or gray. It was a solid sheet of matte white, broken only by faint outlines, shapes too large to comprehend, moving slowly behind it, like whales swimming beneath a frozen ocean. I blinked, and the note was there again, this time hovering midair like a loading screen. "Welcome to Provisional Environment, 4D-Delta. You are being observed by 3 active architects. Please refrain from acknowledging them directly." And below, in smaller print, "Curiosity is a temporary condition. Compliance restores comfort." I reached out to touch the words, and they dissolved into static. A voice spoke behind me. Not in my house, inside my mind. Like a memory I'd never had. "You weren't supposed to get this far." I turned. The figure standing there was not human. It wasn't even pretending well. It had the shape, the silhouette, a body in a coat, hands, a head, but its features were warped, flickering like a corrupted video feed. Eyes that tried too hard to look like eyes. A mouth that moved before words came out. It smiled too wide. "We gave you meaning, purpose, routine, and you threw it away." I backed up against the wall, but there was no wall. Just the illusion of safety. "I just noticed the sun," I whispered. "That was your first mistake," it said. "The sky is not yours to question." I looked around. The scaffolding outside was growing. Walls and doors materializing in real time. People walking through streets that hadn't been there a second ago, as if they'd always existed. Laughing, waving, living, scripts, actors, placeholders. "What is this place?" I asked. The figure twitched. "A construct of your own design, with adjustments. You were given a story, a role, a path. And now you're off script." It raised a hand, and suddenly I saw myself, not in a mirror, but floating beside me. Layers of me, walking to work, checking my phone, eating lunch alone, watching TV, sleeping, over and over. The same loop, the same steps. My entire life condensed into patterns, until the moment I looked up, and everything began to unravel. "You said I could go back," I said. The architect nodded. "We can rebuild the loop, clean, seamless. You won't remember the shadows, the cracks, us." "What happens if I say no?" It smiled again. Too many teeth this time. "Then you keep seeing, all of it, forever." I looked up at the matte white sky and felt something stir in the pit of my stomach. Not fear, but clarity. I had already seen too much to forget. And maybe, just maybe, the loop was never safety. Maybe it was a cage. "I want to meet the others," I said. The architect tilted its head. The smile vanished. "There are no others." "You said 3 were observing. You're only 1. It hesitated. Then quietly, "They're watching now." I turned slowly. The white sky blinked, and from behind the sheet of constructed light, I saw them. 3 figures, massive, each different. One covered in eyes that opened and closed in sequences like breathing. One made of glass and electricity, constantly reshaping. One wearing thousands of human faces like masks, each flickering between expressions. They didn't speak, they didn't move, but I felt their presence, watching, waiting. Not as enemies, as architects, designers of reality. They weren't hiding. I had simply never looked up before. The first architect stepped beside me and whispered, almost gently, "Now you see why forgetting is easier." But I didn't answer, because I finally understood something. They weren't showing me this to punish me. They were showing me because they couldn't stop me anymore. Somewhere deep inside this simulation, in its root layer, something had cracked, and I had slipped through. "What's past this?" I asked. "Nothing you'll understand," the architect replied. "Good," I said. "Then I'm ready." And with that, I stepped forward and fell. Not down, not up, through.